Hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I am in New Jersey myself, so it is 12 p.m. And my name is Michael Levan. And in this session, I wanted to do a quick, unrehearsed, unscripted, all of that good stuff around setting up Karpenter in AKS. So I also have Chris Ray here with me, and he just joined. Chris, we are live. Just a heads up. Um,
Better
literally,
stop picking my nose.
exactly. So Chris is all things cybersecurity, CISO, analyst, engineer, everything in between. He is one of the few people in the cybersecurity space that can do it all, from analyst work to engineering, to cybersecurity leadership, and all of it. And today we are diving into Carpenter on AKS. So again, unscripted, unrehearsed. I played around with this a little bit this morning, and I was like, this seems a little bit more confusing and nuanced than it probably should be. So I figured if I was feeling that way, other people may be feeling that way as well. So I just wanted to share it out. So first things first, I just wanted to dive in and present screen share here, window, and boom.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty common problem if because I just googled it real quick, like, hey, what's going on? And the first result is Carpenter can be used in AKS.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's pretty new. There was a lot of back and forth with this. That Carpenter was like just an AWS for a long time for EKS, and it just recently, like very, very recently, hit with the ability to be used in Azure. Right. So, really quick, before we dive into this, I just want to talk about two things that I think are kind of important: Carpenter versus Cluster Autoscaler. So, Cluster Autoscaler is the default out of the box autoscaler that comes with Kubernetes. Whether you're in AKS, EKS, GKE, whether you're on prem, whatever, this is like the default, right? And the biggest differences, in my opinion, are performance. So what I have seen, at least in EKS, and we don't know how this is going to be in AKS because it's still really really early days, and you will see what I mean by really really early days when I show VS Code, because we're essentially going through a bunch of make files or a bunch of make configurations via a make file. So it's obviously very early days, but the key difference, from my opinion, has always been performance with Cluster Autoscaler versus Carpenter. And I mean like performance optimization of when new nodes go up, when nodes go down, etc. Like it's always just been slightly faster to get nodes up. It's the whole idea around like the just-in-time nodes, and that's the take on Carpenter. Chris, I don't know if you've done too much with Carpenter, but obviously happy to hear your take on it as well.
No, I haven't. I want to be a little bit of a fly on the wall for this.
Cool.
Also, my background is more AWS than Azure, but I'm happy to see how this plays out.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've done a lot of stuff in the AWS realm. I feel like I don't know, I feel like I live in both worlds as of right now. The majority of my test clusters are always on AKS just because it's quick to get it up and running. But as we can see here, I'm just looking through, and these are two like blog posts that I found just doing a quick Google search. Um, and there's some stuff in here that obviously isn't valid anymore, like only AWS at the moment, which isn't the case. But the outside of the performance thing, I would say that the biggest two differences we see are for downscaling. Tries to calculate it by deleting a node. Required resources will be able to be affected on other nodes. It is not bad, but not optimal. Like upscaling, always tries to see if resources can be optimized on other nodes by moving pods manually, which is interesting. Which the Kubernetes scheduler is also doing a piece of that as well, obviously doing the scheduling and stuff. But again, Carpenter isn't doing anything that Cluster Autoscaler doesn't do. It's just doing it a little bit quicker, I think, in my opinion, right? From what I've seen, at least in EKS. But again, we really don't know what it's going to look like in AWS, or I'm sorry, in Azure, because it's too early days, right? It's very much alpha beta build. So it's early days to kind of see what the performance is going to look like. So this is the GitHub page. If everybody wants to just go to this and copy paste this, just go to the org is Azure, and then Karpenter. Excuse me, I'm drinking Pepsi Zero here, so if I'm burping a little bit, I apologize. So scrolling down here, one of the things that I noticed about this documentation, and I've actually been trying to do it a different way, which is maybe why it's not working. But if it's not working because of this, I would be concerned. So just zooming in here, the documentation right off the bat is expecting you to use code spaces. For those of you who do not know what code spaces are, it's essentially VS Code, in the cloud or in your browser, however you want to think about it. I don't personally do anything really with code spaces like ever. I did in the beginning when it was first announced at Ignite years ago, but outside of that, I always just run VS Code locally. I never had a reason to use code spaces. But this documentation here specifies that it wants you to use code spaces. Now, my assumption, because I don't see anything in the issues here, so my assumption is that it's not necessarily a dependency. It's probably just Azure saying this is the easiest way or the easiest method. Yeah, so that's what I'm assuming. All right. So outside of that, really what it wants you to have is it wants you to have an environment variable for your subscription. And then again, I'm gonna show this in just a minute here, what this make file looks like. And that's more or less the gist. There is some stuff going on with Google Cloud in here as well. And I'll show you the errors. I'm still not 100% sure like where that exists. It looks to be something to do with Karpenter CRDs, which I don't know. Let's see how this goes. So let me go ahead and share VS Code here really quick. See a bunch of people joining from Twitter. Hello, or X. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a lot of people on from LinkedIn as well. I can't actually see that information on StreamYard, and I don't want to pop it up on my my phone. So let me let me screen share here. Make file. And all right, boom. I think we're good. So the first thing here is the general make file. So when you clone down that Karpenter org or repo that I was just showcasing, you're going to get a directory that looks like this. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough. It's going to literally be this Karpenter directory. And you're going to see a couple of different things. I have charts, for Helm charts open right now because that's where my error was hitting. But yeah, so you'll see a bunch of different configurations here for that. And by the way, if anybody here has an idea of like where the error is occurring and stuff, because that's what I primarily want to show, this error that I'm seeing and stuff, and I'm assuming other people are seeing it as well. If you're seeing the error or if you've already fixed the error, definitely let us know in the comments. So the make file is essentially exports some Kubernetes version information, exports your subscription ID, sets up some namespace information, right? Looks like there's some testing stuff here, but this is a to-do, so this is like very alpha, as we can see, and a couple of different things. But what really matters, I think, there's also some, this Go test is used here as well to do some unit testing, it looks like. But what really matters, I think, is this makefile -az, and this is what contains everything. So this is everything from specifying the location to logging into your account to creating an Azure Container Registry to creating the AKS cluster itself, to deploying Karpenter and everything and anything. Now, my assumption of why this is the way that it is, because I don't know, but my assumption of the why that this is the way that it is right now is because if you try to install Karpenter just like by itself with like a Helm chart or something, you will get a bunch of errors, and I'm going to show what that kind of looks like as well. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick off this make file. And the reason why I'm going to kick it off without fully going over it with everybody is because it's going to create an AKS cluster. So it's going to take a couple minutes, hopefully only a couple minutes. All right. So, so the command that I'm going to run is make AZ, where is it? Make AZ all. And the reason why is because that's going to kick off all of these configurations here. So you can see AZ, MK, ACR, AZ, MK, AKS. So that's just holding all of the commands that we need to actually go through and create the installation. All right, so I'm going to kick that off. And I'm going to, it's, you can't see it, but it prompts me to, do the AZ login thing or whatever. So it starts to go through and it's creating the cluster and everything like that. Now, curious, Chris, on your opinion, something like this, right? Like going through an installation and a configuration in this way, would you kind of see this as something that's like production based, or would you see something like this more in like a beta alpha style environment where things are just kind of being tested?
Yeah, definitely more beta, alpha beta. Anytime we're talking about deploying something to a cloud, especially something that's shell or script based like this, we want to see the normal DevOpsy stuff built around it to control versioning. Just the sort of standard I would expect if this is going to hit a production environment. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing it this way while we learn it, break it, fix it, and then get it up and running. Especially, it's almost mandatory with something bleeding edge like this, where the documentation's kind of broken, where it's like, hey, you need code space. Well, do you actually really need code spaces for this?
Right.
There's no way to build this into a DevOps pipeline yet.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So I would say this is really something that's, to your point, bleeding edge. Like I don't see right now that this should be implemented in a production environment. Karpenter itself is very much production ready for like AWS, but obviously, and I don't even know the exact changes. I don't know if they're specifically public outside of just this code, but obviously there is a different configuration needed for AKS. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go through all this and we would just run the Helm chart to install Karpenter, right? So there's obviously some nuances there of like things that we need to figure out and things that need to be implemented. Hence why we have to go through this process here right now. So again, for everybody that's joining, for everybody that's just joined, if you've gone through this process of implementing Karpenter on AKS, please feel free to shout it out, because we're definitely running into some errors here and some issues, which I'm just going to show in just a second. And again, I have not figured out what these issues are. I don't know if I'm going to figure out these issues on this live stream. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but I don't think that I'm going to. I think that this is going to be something that I'll probably have to figure out this weekend. But if you're going through it as well, definitely interested in hearing from your perspective. So I'm going to pop open VS Code here again. And what I want to do is I want to go to another terminal, because this is a terminal where like I tried to run this before and I was having the errors. So if we scroll up here, now here's the other thing, the output to be able to follow along where it is in the code here is not ideal. Like we definitely need more output here, but if I go through a little bit and I check this piece, actually a little bit before this right here, right before the error and right before the deployment of the Helm chart, I think we are, because this ran, like I can see that. I don't know if we can see it in the output here. Let me scroll up. Yeah. So we can see like the manifest stuff aka these pieces of code here, this is running. So that ran, etc. All of this looks like it ran. Where it seems to, okay, so even this part, line 111 through line 13, I'm sorry, 118 through 120, because this is also using scaffold, so it's using CI/CD like in and out in terms of like how can I put it? Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the name, the type of environment. An ephemeral environment, right? So like it keeps running these commands kind of over and over again because it's running everything via scaffold, and then it's coming out of scaffold and then doing another scaffold build and all that. So these are like, some of this is like ephemeral environments. We can see that even up here, which again, I don't know why exactly. But we can see here, like, create a test cluster on line 27, and then it deletes the test cluster. I don't know why. So again, there's definitely some things that we're not 100% aware of here. And then if I scroll down, now again, the output, what I'm thinking is we are somewhere around here before the errors start occurring. So the error that I'm seeing, the primary one, because there are a couple errors going through, but like, I don't think they're relevant. Like, we got an error here because, you know, the symbolic link is different. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with this. Again, I've looked at this for a whole 5 minutes on my own before streaming it, so I don't think that it has anything to do with it. But the primary error that I'm seeing is this right here. Karpenter deployment failed to apply default image tag, asterisk, at sign or whatever, couldn't parse image reference, invalid reference format. Now, I Googled that a little bit and I didn't see anything like specific come up. And actually, I just saw something come in from Jared on Twitter. Did it this morning using code spaces, no issues. Interesting. So Jared, if you're still listening, you literally just cloned the repo down and did it in code spaces, and it was fine and it worked as is. Because if that's the case, we may have kind of just solved the issue here, where it looks like there's a code space dependency, which I would be like pretty upset if there was a huge dependency on code spaces like that. There's nothing wrong with code spaces, but like, I don't use code spaces because I don't need to pay for code spaces, right? So like, I just use VS Code locally. So if there was a dependency on code spaces like that, I am really curious. Yeah, that's really interesting. But I'm gonna wait to hear back from Jared. Hopefully he's still listening. But if not, maybe that is the thing. And if anybody here is also trying it as well, let me know if you're also using it in code spaces. Because if you are, and it works, that may be the issue. So, but anyways, going back to what I was saying, I think this is where the error is occurring, which doesn't make sense. And the reason why I think that is because I'm going based off of these previous steps, right? So if I look at these previous steps right before the error, actually we might be able to see it here. Okay, yeah, here we go. So this is the new one running. So right before the error, we see this right here, right? Which is, again, I believe it's this. And then I think this runs fine, but again, no output on the terminal. So, and again, I like, if we kind of scroll down a little bit here, I don't see anything specifying any Helm charts until we get to this Grafana piece. but this Grafana piece doesn't occur. It errors out before we get there. So we're erroring out somewhere in here. However, going into these charts here, we have two Helm charts for standard Karpenter, just for like the Karpenter installation in general, and the CRD. Now, my assumption that it's failing on Karpenter is because of this. If I run AZ AKS credentials namespace, I think the cluster name is Karpenter, gdevrel as a service, kubectl get nodes. Yeah, this is the cluster here. Running on version 1.27. I did not change that in the make file. That is in the make file. I don't know if anybody else is changing that because it's obviously we're a version or two behind at that point. But if I run kubectl get all namespace Karpenter, I'm getting an invalid image name, which lines up with this error, right? And if I run kubectl logs against this pod, namespace Karpenter. Oh, all right, let's do actually a describe kubectl describe pod. Here we go. So we're getting, if we do a describe, we're getting that error via the events. Failed to apply default image tag. I don't know what this means. If I run kubectl get deployments namespace Karpenter, kubectl describe deployments Karpenter namespace Karpenter. And I scroll up here, I should also see that image tag referenced in the controller here. I don't know where this is coming from. And the reason why I say that is because check this out, right? And I'm thinking out loud here. This error that we see is clearly coming from the Karpenter deployments, right? Helm list. Oh, actually, I am doing that in the output. Helm list namespace Karpenter, right? So it's clearly coming from this. Now, if let's see if anybody said anything in the comments.
I was just going to say, is Karpenter supposed to be automatically tagging those image names? And maybe it's just missing a value, so it's throwing in nothing?
Maybe. I'm going to open that up in a second, but I just want to pop up this comment here. When you create your code space from the repo, it will launch your code space with the repo content. You simply export your Azure sub ID in the terminal and run the makefile command. You can see lots of references to code space var in the makefile. See, that's interesting though, because Jared, to your point, all it's doing is bringing down the repo content, right? I think that's what you're saying. So it's bringing down the repo content, and you have the ability to just specify your Azure subscription ID, and then you run the make command in the terminal. That shouldn't be different than what I'm doing here, right? Because I modified the make file a little bit, and I just put in my Azure subscription ID. That's all I did for this one. I played around a little bit more with it before, but I cloned a fresh one, and this is all I updated. So, Jared, to your point, if this is all it's doing, it shouldn't have a dependency on code space, unless you're saying you can see lots of references to code space var in the make file. So maybe there is a dependency. I'm trying to figure out where it is. Like I'm looking in the code to figure out and understand where it is. If we look in the make file to Jared's point, and we do, what was that one? Code space, code_space. I'm not seeing it in make file. Are you referring to this one? Okay, so interesting. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing it when I clone the repo locally, but maybe, so that's interesting. I'm not seeing it when I clone the repo locally, but Jared, you're seeing it when you use code spaces. So I wonder if that's something that's automatically generated, or am I being silly and looking in the wrong spot? The second thing is, it could be very well possible. All right. So while we're just thinking on that and waiting a little bit, maybe Jared might respond. We'll see. If I open up, Chris, to your point, right? Like, is there something that's being passed in at runtime, essentially, is what you're saying, right? So if I open up this Helm chart and I go to the values.yaml, and this is the other part that confused me this morning. If I open it, so this is the values.yaml for the Karpenter Helm chart that we see here. Scrolling down, where is it? Here it is. Okay, so again, interesting, because check this out. If I scroll up, you see how it's under controller image? That's what this reference is. Controller image. And here's the repository and here's the tag. So where the heck is this coming from? That's see, and that's the part that's interesting, is where is that coming from? Because okay, I'm fairly certain, I'm just following the trail here. Controller image. This value is coming from lines 94 and 95 in the values.yaml file. And we have a tag here. So let's do this actually. I'm going to share a web browser really quick. Screen share. I actually pulled this up before. This is the public repository where it's coming. So, actually, this is the public repository where it's coming from. public.ecr.aws/carpenter/carpenter. This one is, okay, no, this is actually the controller, which obviously makes sense because we're looking at the controller specification in the describe and in the values.yaml. So go back, controller. And this all lines up. public.ecr.aws/carpenter. So, I don't know why that just changed on me automatically. /carpenter/controller, and the version is 0.33.0. Then if I go back and I share VS Code again, screen share VS Code. Yeah, public.ecr.aws/carpenter/controller version 0.33.0. We just got a comment here, actually from Twitch, which is awesome because I just signed up for Twitch today and I'm streaming on Twitch for the first time today. So happy that somehow people are seeing it. So, hey, Mike, nice. The Helm chart, it seems that it is getting the image tag from helpers.tpl. Let me open that up. Charts, Karpenter, templates, helpers.tpl. Oh, line 70, Karpenter controller image. Oh my gosh, now I'm even more confused. Values that control. Oh, well, okay. So it's pulling from the values.yaml file, right? If I'm not mistaken. So your comment, hey Mike, from the Helm chart, it seems that it's getting the image tag from. Yeah, so that's this here, but it looks like it is pulling the value from controller image repository, which is here, controller image repository. Which again, interesting because, yeah, so we did get this error, in this one that I was showing before, inspect failed to apply default image tag. What does this mean? Let me do a quick googly here.
Oh, I'm way ahead of you there.
Oh, you were searching it too? Yeah, like nothing comes up, right?
No, nothing. I mean, nothing obvious.
All right, let me. Okay, so literally nothing comes up other than like default image tags, but nothing around this error around Karpenter. So let's try to. Oh wait, I forgot the K. All right, no, same thing. All right, so let's start taking off pieces of this error and seeing if we can. Something from Rancher 2017, but again, it's nothing. Failed to apply default. Let's say. This is similar. A long time ago, 2018, but running with a private registry. The type of server is very similar error. Failed to apply default image tag. Couldn't parse image reference, which if I open up VS Code, it's like it's the same error, but showing like one is just the colon, one is the colon @ sign. Okay. Oh, of course I can't see the solution. Let's see. No. Anybody say anything in StreamYard? No, not yet. This is from 2018. It's super, super old outputs, but all right. So 3 things. I think it's a typo. Just a double check. Can you show it's in the Docker file? So a lot of people are thinking typos. Config.u. What's this? I don't even think this is not Karpenter related, but this issue that I'm looking at right now is not Karpenter related, but I don't think.
I'm leaning that way with you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm trying to see if there's like, because this error that we're seeing isn't Karpenter specific. This error is like if the image tag isn't valid. But again, my confusion is like we see the right image tag in the values.yaml file, yet that's not what's being grabbed, yet that's where it is being grabbed from. To my knowledge, like that's what I'm seeing at least. Let's look at good old Stack Overflow. Invalid, yeah, schedulers, same type of error. The problem was with the address of the repository. Okay. That would obviously make
some
sense.
401s. Yeah.
Yeah, that would obviously make sense, but it appears to be correct. So I can't share two screens at once, I don't think, but I'm now looking at what I'm showing you and VS Code to my right here. public.ecr.aws/carpenter/controller tag 0.33. That's it. Okay. This shouldn't be the case, but all right, this shouldn't be the case, but we're going to give it a shot anyways. Do I have a Docker daemon running? I do. Yep. Yeah. Well, that error that would have actually yelled at me before. That error yelled at me before when I was trying that before I went on. Could be something related to scaffold. It seems to override Helm values. Do you have the Docker? Take a look at the scaffold.yaml file. Interesting. Let's try that. I'm actually. I'll admit that I don't do too much with scaffold, but. So thank you for helping out with that, because I actually probably wouldn't have looked at that. All right, let's try that. Let's try the scaffold. So one of the things that I wanted to try to do as well, the thing that I was thinking of, we'll do the scaffold thing first, but the tag, like if you look at that, if you go to the public gallery for ECR, the tag is technically v.0. Now that shouldn't be the case, obviously, right? It should be this, but I'm curious. I'm 99% sure that has nothing to do with it, but I'm kind of at a loss. All right, so let's do this. I'm just opening up my browser here really quick, and I'm going to delete the AKS cluster that's currently running, because if I try to rerun the make file, it will yell at me because the cluster already exists. So I'm going to delete that so we don't have any issues. And then at the same time, I am sharing VS Code, right? Yeah. All right. So let me pop open VS Code here, and then scaffold.yaml. Let's try that. Here it is. Image repo. Is this what you're referring to here? Lines 22 through 24. They're saying to maybe hard code that. Where do those values come from? .image repo. They come from, no, not down here. Chris, I don't think you've done anything with scaffold, right?
Nope.
No. Where do these?
But I'm thinking the same thing. Let's just, like a caveman, throw a rock at it, hard code that in, see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, let's definitely try the hard-coded values there instead of using the variables to this point here. But I'm just curious, do you by chance know where those values are set? Asking the audience, just because I see it's coming from somewhere. I just don't know, because like it's not coming from here. I don't think it's coming from the values.yaml. Do seeing one reference here. Yeah, curious if y'all know where that's coming from in scaffold, because like I said, pardon my ignorance, I don't do too much with scaffold. In the meantime, let's give that a whirl here. So let's do this. The repo, right? Let's do this. All right. So that is saved. Let me see. Is my AKS cluster deleted? It is still deleting. So let's give it a few moments. And while we're waiting for that, I want to Google, where does scaffold.yaml get values from? Let me share. I'm going to share my web browser here. You can now ask scaffold a reference. Where do value files? Oh no, this is for Helm. Helm value file, path to the Helm value file. That's confusing. Scaffold will build Helm value files that override the original and use it to call the Helm CLI. Okay, that's awesome, but where do they come from? Let's do this. Let's do scaffold image digest. Yeah, IHOP. I'm gonna say IHOP because I think that's what we're. I think that's how I should be saying it. And I love pancakes, so I'm gonna say IHOP. I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna try Code Spaces. I don't know if I'll have enough time for this 1 hour because we're hitting the 45-minute mark just about. But if it doesn't work, yes, I am gonna try Code Spaces after this. I was really hoping to not have to do Code Spaces because that would be incredibly inefficient if we had to use Code Spaces. I'm just saying. But I understand dependencies. It's in a beta alpha build. Maybe that's just the case for it right now. Yeah, no, I know I can have it up and running in 15 minutes, but I do want to showcase VS Code here really quick because I just deleted the cluster that I had and I just hard coded those values here. So I want to try this step first. So let's do that. All right, so we got that. Let's give this a shot. All right, so this is going to do its thing with the scaffold.yaml being updated. So for everybody just tuning in, I just hard coded these values here per a recommendation on the live stream from the comments. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to let this do its thing. And in the meantime, does anybody by chance know where scaffold.yaml gets its values from? Because I cannot find that for whatever reason. It looks like it's almost getting its values from the values.yaml, but it's supposed to override the values.yaml. Or maybe it's just staring at me in the face. And let's see. All right, this is for the Helm chart. So my assumption is it's not pulling values from there. Charts, Karpenter, okay. Here's the dev container piece for code spaces. So that's already there, which is great. Yeah, I don't know where the values come from. So unfortunately, this takes a little bit just because the AKS cluster here. Um, so yeah, so while this is going, I'm gonna try to fill up some time so you all aren't just looking at my face. So far, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take the Karpenter configuration from GitHub for AKS and just run it, you know, as is, right? Like not playing around with anything, not looking to figure anything out, just running it by default. And when we did that, we got, where is it? This error here, maybe here, not here, right here. Invalid image, right? So it's essentially, for whatever reason, looking at whatever this is. Googled it, didn't really come up with much. Chris Googled it as well, didn't come up with much. After diving into it a little bit more, we could see that it was the Karpenter Helm chart which was running. And when I did a describe on the deployment, we saw this. So this right here, I suspected was coming from the values.yaml, which didn't make any sense, right? Because like obviously that's not the value here. It's not the colon @ sign, right? Like we're actually specifying the repository and stuff. And then somebody on the live stream on the chat said, oh, check the scaffold.yaml. And so that's what we did. So we checked the scaffold.yaml. And then under the manifest, this is for the Helm manifest specifically for Karpenter. This here was pulling a value from the value template. Now, I don't know where these values are being pulled from, but what we did was we hard coded it in here to kind of see if that would fix the issue. And so we're just kind of waiting to see if that actually fixes the issue or not. And then to IHOP's point here, if that doesn't work, I will try code spaces. We're about 13 minutes away before the live stream ends, so may not be able to do it via the stream, but if not, that's fine. AZ patch scaffold, update Azure client environment variables and settings. And okay, so that's where it's coming from. AZ patch scaffold. Let's check that out. AZ patch scaffold. Okay, here. I'm not okay. Yeah, so here we go. Thank you for your help. Cheers, appreciate it. Coming from right there, we're going to take a look at that right here. Then I'm not familiar with scaffold, but it seems to get those variables from the build. Actually, in the make file, it seems to be building its own Karpenter image and pushing it to ACR. Huh. That would make sense why we need ACR then. I didn't exactly know why ACR was there, but that would make sense. It seems to be building its own Karpenter image and pushing it to ACR. Huh. Interesting. That makes sense, and I wonder why. All right, so let's see. This is the patch here. So what I want to do is I want to see where the image is being specified. Ah, here we go. Scaffold, scaffold. Interesting. But I don't see anything about a container image. Ah, here we go. All right, so we're getting a new error from hard coding. Same type of error. Failed to deploy default image tag. See how it's like putting that at sign? Why is it doing that? So it's actually calling the okay, so good news is thank you so much for your help, community. Y'all found where the error was coming from and we hard coded it. So we now know exactly where the error is coming from. It's not from the values.yaml, it's from the scaffold.yaml. But the reason why it's erroring out is because of this little at sign. And we see that same thing here. And if we scroll up, excuse me, here, right? Same error, just a little bit different of the output because we hard coded it. But it's that little at sign. What? That is so strange. Huh. I am determined to not use code spaces and to figure out there's no way that's a code spaces thing because of a dependency on code spaces. Where all right, let me do this just because I want to get that. There it is. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I feel like I'm not going to do much this weekend other than leave my desk because that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, which is the unfortunate reality, but that is what will be happening here. I didn't even realize. Looked like Chris dropped off. Chris, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it. So then the question is this: where is this new error? Should be because of the digestible variable. The helper is adding it. Yeah. But now my next question is, because we only have a couple minutes left, I think maybe I might have to do another stream about this. Line 72 in the helpers. Yeah. And this is pulling from Helm, which is confusing within itself. Try to remove that variable from the scaffold.yaml. You're referring to this piece? And you know what? This stream is going to end soon, but I am not going to end it. All right, so I'm going to try to keep this thing going. I don't think it's going to cut me off because I'm using StreamYard and I scheduled it for an hour. I don't think it's going to cut me off. So we're just going to keep going. We're going to go past an hour. So, all right, let's try that. Yes, line 24. So I'm going to comment this out. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to comment it out. I'm going to, again, delete my AKS cluster. All right. And then what I'm going to do, just to cause more confusion, so we don't have to wait for the cluster to be deleted. Just going to give it a new name. All right. So let's see. So you said try to remove the variable from the scaffold. Yes, line 24. All right. Perfect. So now I've commented out the digest, so that digest should not be called via the helpers. Now, what do you think? Should I hard code? All right, yeah, so you're saying hard code those two lines, right? All right, so let's do that then. Let's hard code those values back. to your point. And then if this works, we'll try to uncomment. We'll put these values back because I mean, so here's my other question, right? Like where are those? I still don't know where the values are getting pulled from. Are they getting pulled from here or are they getting pulled from here? And if they're getting pulled from here, where is it being? So because that's the interesting thing, right? Like if the values were hard coded here for the scaffold.yaml, that means this would be specified somewhere here, which it's not. Which leads me to believe it must be being pulled from the the values file in the Helm chart. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But like in the make file, right? It doesn't exist. Like those values don't exist. So, which leads me to believe it's coming from the values.yaml. But I don't know. Oh, you're saying because it's creating the new image, it's storing that image in ACR. So it's pulling the dynamic variables because it's creating the image, it's creating a new tag version, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I get what you're saying. That does make sense. It kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, I wish that it wasn't the case, but okay. So let's try this. Did it change the? Yeah. Okay. So I changed the cluster name. I have the other cluster deleting, but I don't want to wait. So. All right, so we'll wait for it to do its thing. Yeah, and you know that's weird. So I'm looking at the comments here. I'm gonna answer. So that's weird to me. Why? Do you have any suspicion as to why is it creating a custom container image and putting it in ACR? I'm assuming the answer is because it can't use the current container image from the public ECR repo. Because maybe there's something in the make file that's being generated that must be there's a configuration that's being generated from the make file that's being stored in a container image being pushed up to ACR, and whatever that configuration is, it's custom obviously for Karpenter to work in AKS. But here's my question: why is there not a default container image for Karpenter to work in AKS, and you can just pass in your environment variables via the Helm chart, just like we do with Karpenter and EKS, right? Because Karpenter and EKS looks like this. So in EKS, right, like it's using a standard Helm chart based on this container image. And then what you do is you just pass in cluster name, cluster endpoint, ARN that's needed, etc. So I don't know why there's not like a default container image that you can just pass in your values. Because that obviously should, and maybe that's the way that this project is going. I'm not sure. I certainly hope so. We definitely can't just be creating container images dynamically like that every single time we want to use Karpenter and AKS. That doesn't scale. But let's see. Let's do a screen share. Oop. What was this error? Oh. Of course we're going to get this error. This is a quota limit. There's a quota limit on my Azure account because the other AKS cluster wasn't deleted yet. All right, let's go ahead and wait for that. The AKS cluster is still being deleted, so hopefully it won't take too much longer because it's been the deletion has been running for about 6 minutes or so now. Provision the infra. Yeah. Build and deploy Karpenter. Deploy sample provisioner. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, while we're waiting for that, I just want to say thank y'all so much for coming in here. There's a lot of comments in here. Wow. Hopefully I didn't miss any. Apologies. I didn't. There's a ton of comments. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We're not done yet, but while we're waiting for AKS to delete, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming in here, for hanging out with me, for helping me through this. As you can see, I didn't have all the answers either, right? And none of us ever do. That's why there's community-driven stuff like this, right? So we can kind of come in here and figure things out together. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Again, we're not done yet. I'm still waiting for this AKS cluster to be deleted here. But yeah, lots of comments, lots of people coming in. This is awesome. Let's see. Refresh. This thing is still deleting. Yeah. Spinning up code space. Well, yeah. Thank you. Spin up code spaces and let me know. Because yeah, Jared on the comments around like 40 minutes ago or so, he said that he was able to run it in code spaces just fine. But you know why I'm so reluctant to run it in code spaces? Not because there's anything wrong with code spaces, but there obviously should not be a dependency on code spaces for this. Uh, in my opinion, even in like a beta alpha build, which Karpenter on AKS clearly is, oh, hey, I didn't realize it was the same person. Jared is the same. Jared before that was helping us is the same Jared that is IHOP and Twitch right now. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. 'Cause otherwise, I was talking about the same person in two different ways, which might be a little bit worse than talking in the third person. Luckily, I'm not doing any of that today. But what I was saying was like I'm reluctant to run it because like even in a beta and alpha build, there should not be that heavy of a dependency on code spaces, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, and I'm very vendor agnostic. I work with everybody, and I work with all vendors. But yeah, all right. Get a little caffeine going. It's Pepsi Zero. Don't worry, no sugar, and it's not diet, so that's good. All right, let's see. Still deleting. Okay, it's deleted. So now let's try that again. Yeah, it could be the case. I would hate that if this is the reason, but you know. All right, let's see. This is doing its thing. It's creating the cluster. Okay, cool. So to bring us full circle here, what we're trying to do at this point is when we ran. Well, so what did we do? We hard coded these values here, right, in the scaffold.yaml. Then we got a similar error. We still got the fail to apply default image tag error. This is the same error we were getting before, except before it showed, if I scroll up here, before it showed this, right? It showed : @. Same error though. Now we're seeing again, same thing, but it's still showing the same error, and it's still showing that little @ sign even at the end. So what we did was we, in the scaffold.yaml, we commented out the digest, which is coming from this piece here. So let's see if that fixes the issue. I still don't know why that little @ thingy is there, but at least if we get this going, we'll kind of understand Well, we won't understand, but it'll be working, and then we'll have to go and spend some more time to understand. All right. While we're waiting here, I'm just going to pop open something on my phone. All right. Nice, nice, nice. Cool. All right. I was just curious. I was looking at my phone because I was seeing if the stream on LinkedIn was still working, because I'm using StreamYard for this. So like I can stream to multiple places at once. So right now I'm streaming to Twitch, LinkedIn, and X. And I can see the stats for like LinkedIn and X, but I can't see the stats for Twitter. So every once in a while, I just have to look and see like, hey, is it still actually running? All right. And actually, while this is running, I still want to look and see. In the make file. So yeah, so this is where for the scaffold.yaml, this is where the values are being set. I was wondering where those values were set before for the scaffold.yaml. So they're being set here. However, what appears to be happening, and I'll pull up this comment. They should come from the make file when it runs a scaffold build. It should set those values dynamically. So if you look at the make file here, scroll up, it creates an Azure container registry for us, which is, it's like Docker Hub, right? It's a location to put your container image. And I was wondering why it was creating it. Like I wasn't sure, but like I wasn't ready to go down the rabbit hole yet. I just wanted to see if I could figure out how to make it work. And then like I like to figure out the problems first and then understand the problems later on. Cause you know, if you try to understand a problem when a problem still exists, you don't know if you're trying to understand the correct problem or the wrong problem. So I always try to make things work first. That way I still need to understand the problem and I still want to understand the problem, but I want to make sure I'm understanding the right problem. Because all of us have enough problems and we don't need to understand the wrong problems in life. All right, this thing is doing its thing. But going back to what I was saying before I started rambling about problems, it looks like there's a container image for Karpenter that is being created each time this make file runs. So every time this make file runs, there's a Karpenter container image that's being created, stored in ACR, and used as Karpenter in your AKS cluster. I don't know why. I don't know why there's not a default Karpenter container image. But that seems to be what's happening. All right, got an error here. At least it's a new error, right? Public ECR, Karpenter control, can't be pulled. Okay, so this is what I was assuming was going to happen, but this solidified it at least for us. The reason why this is happening is because the container image that's being pulled is not being pulled from the Karpenter container image. It is being pulled from the container image that's being created and stored in ACR, which is why you have these environment variables here in your scaffold.yaml. Now, here's the thing. Based on the error message that we saw before we tried to hard code it, it looks like this. The reason why it's showing this is because if I zoom in here, The reason why it's showing it like this, specifically this colon at sign here, is because there is no container image to pull. So in ACR, and we can test my theory right now, but if I go to ACR here, we'll go ahead and again, we'll test my theory here. If I go to ACR, there's not going to be a container image. So the container image doesn't get created. I think this is it. See? There's no container image. I don't even know what this error is, but there's no container image, which means that the container image doesn't get created, which, Jared, to your point before of why code spaces worked for you, it looks like that's the problem. It looks like there is a dependency on code spaces. For whatever reason, that container image is getting generated and stored in ACR every time that makefile runs. But as we can see, the container image that was supposed to get created when the makefile ran was not created. Or if it was not stored in ACR, in our ACR. But if it works on, and the only difference here is that I'm not using code spaces. But Jared in the comments is using code spaces. So that means, folks, yes, it looks like there is a dependency on code spaces. And I don't know why. And it shouldn't be that way. That's not okay. There shouldn't be a dependency on code. And maybe there's like a specific reason why, from an engineering perspective, that I don't know, that like they needed to do it that way or something like that. But it obviously shouldn't be the case in any sense, right? If that is the dependency, then they should have waited to put out Karpenter. If it's an engineering specific thing, like they needed code spaces for X, Y, and Z, they probably should have waited to put Karpenter out. Because, like, here's the thing. That's a large dependency to use. And so like we could test out Karpenter and code spaces and woohoo, it works. Yay. We can't use it in any production workloads. We can't even test it in any dev and staging workloads if we don't use code spaces. Like if we're not using this specific method, we can't test it. Right now, right now as it stands, as I can see, Karpenter and AKS is no more than funsies, right? It's no more than a neat party trick, unfortunately. All right. So that's where we will have to leave off, folks. We will have to use it in code spaces. Okay. So that's where at least we found out. It's unfortunate, but at least we found out, right? So okay. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up the stream for today. Maybe we'll do another stream on CodeSpace. I'll put something out. I'll put a video out. I'll put another stream, a blog, something. I'll do something. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but within the next couple of days, I will do something for this. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it. These live streams like this are very fun because, as you can see, as I was fumbling through these, we're clearly not scripted in any way. So it's awesome to be able to do this with y'all. And like I said, so much engagement, so much engagement. This is the most engagement I've ever had in a live stream, which is awesome. So lots of comments, lots of engagement. Thank y'all so much for joining. Really do appreciate it. Really appreciate the community working through this with me, taking your time, taking time out of your day, right, to be able to go through this with me. So I really do appreciate it. And thank y'all so much. And Jared, let me know how it goes. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And have a good rest of your weekend if I don't talk to you, everybody.